American Public Media.
The University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications offers online master's programs designed to help professionals advance their careers. More information at onlinemasters.jou.ufl.edu. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, Republican gubernatorial hopeful Paul Renner. We ask the former Northeast Florida lawmaker and House Speaker about the tough road to the GOP primary. Then, a local animator tells us a story of survival in 6 minutes. She tells us the inspiration behind her 3D cartoon Catastrophe. And after 70 years downtown, it's time for a fond farewell. We tell you what to expect during the Jacksonville Fair's final run at the downtown fairgrounds. Plus, a community theater that likes pushing boundaries. We lift the curtain on the Five and Dime Theater's upcoming season. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The federal government shutdown is more than 1 month old. There's no sign Republican and Democratic lawmakers will agree on a spending bill to end it. More than 1 million federal workers are furloughed. Some are turning to food banks for support. From member station WAMU in Washington, D.C., Jenny Abamu reports from Montgomery County, Maryland.
This site has enough food for over 300 families and was set up to give food to federal workers not being paid during the shutdown. Emma Sani is a furloughed federal employee. She has a 9-year-old and a new baby at home.
Not knowing what tomorrow may bring, not knowing when I'll go back to work, when I'll get a paycheck, having a 3-week-old, just an extra, burden not getting a paycheck. It's very stressful at times.
Montgomery County is home to over 50,000 federal workers. Congressman Jamie Raskin, a Democrat who represents much of the county, says constituents are calling his office and asking him to hold out for health care subsidies. For NPR News, I'm Jenny Abamu in Bethesda.
The Senate passed legislation yesterday that would overturn President Trump's tariffs on Canada. 4 Republicans joined the Democrats in opposing the levies. Virginia Democratic Senator Tim Kaine says instead of slapping U.S. tariffs on Canada, it would be better to look again at the free trade agreement among North American nations.
The right answer to the U.S.-Canada relationship on trade is to go back to the table on USMCA, find anything that hasn't worked, anything that can be made better, negotiate and make it better.
Earlier this week, the Senate passed a similar resolution that would end President Trump's tariffs on Brazil. The House is not expected to take up these measures. Today's confirmation hearing for U.S. Surgeon General nominee Casey Means has been postponed. A spokesperson for the Senate Health Committee tells Bloomberg News that Means, who is pregnant, has gone into labor. Members of the Oregon National Guard, under President Trump's authority, were deployed to a federal immigration facility in Portland, Oregon, earlier this month. As Oregon Public Broadcasting's Conrad Wilson reports, it's the first indication National Guard troops were deployed in the state.
The revelations came as a federal trial about the president's authority to deploy the National Guard got underway in Portland. According to emails summarizing the federal response, 9 members of the Oregon National Guard were sent to the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in South Portland in early October. The emails show the Guard members began their, quote, first support mission on October 4th and were set to finish at midnight. The same afternoon, while they were at the ICE building, U.S. District Court Judge Karen Emmergut issued a temporary restraining order that blocked the Trump administration from federalizing the Guard. Emmergut said she'll consider later whether federal officials acted in contempt of her order. For NPR News, I'm Conrad Wilson in Portland.
This is NPR.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's now 9:04. A 15-year-old Jacksonville student has won a $10,000 Department of Defense Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Talent Award for his research project into stereotypes depicted by artificial intelligence. Landon College prep student Peter Dulé was one of 5 top winners selected from almost 2,000 students who took part in the competition. Dulé used an AI tool on his computer to find a generic image of a scientist. It generated 2,000 images, but only 17% of them depicted women scientists, even though they make up about 35% of STEM graduates. He explains it in a video presentation on his research.
AI didn't just reflect these stereotypes, it amplified them. But the good news is that science doesn't actually look like that. My project challenges those stereotypes in 2 ways. Through what I found and through how I approached those findings. What I found was that AI often reinforces gender stereotypes in science, showing far fewer women than men.
Each finalist participated in team challenges. In addition to being judged on their research projects, the finalists' schools also received a $1,000 grant to support STEM programming. Heavy delays remain on the drive into downtown Jacksonville on I-10 eastbound due to a crash at McDuff Avenue that has a left lane blocked. The weather, though, is going to be very nice today. Temperatures reach the mid-60s to low 70s with clear skies and dry conditions. It'll be nice the next couple of days.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Lodestar Foundation, inspired by the principle that helping those in need is a path to a happier, healthier, and more meaningful life. Learn more at lodestarfoundation.org. This is NPR.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, Republican gubernatorial hopeful Paul Renner. Facing a steep road to the GOP primary, the former Northeast Florida lawmaker and House Speaker lays out his master plan. Later in the program, we preview the Downtown Fair in its final season and the season taking stage at the Five and Dime Theater. But first, he is a former Navy officer, prosecutor, Northeast Florida lawmaker, and Speaker of the House. Now, Paul Renner believes he has the political chops to make a legitimate bid for governor in 2026. We ask him what his path to victory looks like. He also takes your calls and questions. You can reach us at 904-549-2937 or email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. Paul Renner, thanks for being here.
Great to be with you, Ann.
So I have heard in other interviews, I've heard you reference your 2 young children frequently when you're asked why you're running to become Florida's next governor. You know, you had kids relatively late. How has being a dad impacted your politics?
Well, first of all, it's wonderful. It's the best thing is being a dad. I've got a 5-year-old daughter, 3-year-old son, and it does give you a longer-term horizon and motivate you. And in this case, has motivated me back into offering myself for public service. You know, at age 23, I was in the military, 2 wars, and 20 years later, in a state attorney, fighting for the country, fighting for the community. And then, of course, joined the legislature in 2015, and was speaker as of 2024. But my kids make me think a lot about 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. And in our term-limited world, it's really important that our leaders be thinking down the road at things that they can do or that they must do today that they'll never get credit for. But unless it's done today, we'll see our infrastructure degrade, our environment degrade, things of that nature that have to be done now to put us in a good place 20 years from now.
Yeah, and so you may not get credit, you may get blame, and I think that there's some people that look at the current state, for instance, of infrastructure in Florida when it comes to things like being a resilient community, being prepared for the impacts of a warming climate, and say, wow, we didn't do much in 2015 to make sure that 2025 is hardened against some of those threats or prepared for the next 50 years when it comes to reducing emissions of carbon and other, pollutants that are helping to warm the climate.
Well, I'm proud to say that we did while I was speaker, and my partner, Kathleen Pasadomo, Senate President, we looked at the Indian Gaming Compact, which will soon be about $1 billion a year. It's not quite that today, of recurring revenue that's available that we didn't have before, based on that their ability to do some gaming and whatnot across the state. And so we got together and said, let's make this all part of the environment, and let's make sure that we're funding things like resilience. There's $100 million of recurring money for resilience funding for local governments to do things to avoid flooding, to raise pump stations, do the things that are necessary to make that adjustment. Sadly, the legislature this last year pulled all that out and put it into general revenue. As governor, when I'm governor, we'll put that back in. We will, I promise you, invest in our environmental infrastructure as well as our roads, bridges, ports, and that kind of thing that we need for a growing state. I was also, along with my partner in the Senate, a champion for the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and I think it's very important that we preserve the wild Florida, not just for the wildlife, but for our environment. We need to make sure that our rain is captured and recharges our aquifer. It doesn't just run out to sea or run across the pavement into the stormwater systems, which overwhelm those systems. And so I want to be very thoughtful and forward-looking about what happens 30 or 40 years from now, and that means we set aside some of this land. We do invest in resilience and flooding issues, as well as we had about $500 million in water grants in that package that would fund local governments who can't really afford that on their own to improve stormwater, wastewater, improve their capacity. This is a very, very important thing, so we're not having raw sewage, for example, spill into our water bodies. In Florida, I'm a big believer in the fact that people come here for the fishing, for the great outdoors, for the beaches. We've got to keep it that way, and with a growing population, it's a challenge. I want people to be able to go out in the St. Johns River here in Jacksonville and catch a fish and eat that fish safely.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure we're keeping on top of those issues.
You don't have any problem saying climate change?
I don't have any problem saying that whatever is happening, and I want to look at the science. I think there's a wide variety, and what I've said is, you tell me, is it 6 inches or 6 feet? Because there's a really big difference between those two in terms of what you do.
You're talking about sea level rise?
Yeah. And so what is it? I'm agnostic. I want to know what the science shows it is. As a low-lying peninsula, if there's sea level rise, we have to adjust to that.
I mean, the science right now, even the conservative science, says that a lot of your coastline in the area, that you have represented is going to be gone, from Mayport down to Palm Coast. I mean, that a lot of the people that live in those beaches communities in 50 years are going to be seeing daily flooding, rainy day, sunny day, high tide, kind of regularly, streets underwater, infrastructure not working because of it.
Yeah, and I don't want us to get off on a debate about the debate of whether it's catastrophic or whether there's an effect. But if there's an effect, we've got to respond to it, and that's where I say I'm agnostic. If there's more flooding in Miami, for example, and I was down there last week, and I think there probably is, whether that's from development or whatever the case may be, or sea level rise, we have to have a response for it. And so we did that in the legislature. We're doing LIDAR, which is a very sophisticated way to bring science to the conversation and look at where those hot spots are. Because again, if sea levels are going to rise 6 inches, you can plan for that. You can make adjustments for that. If it's 6 feet, if those who proclaim catastrophe are right, well, that's a whole different conversation about relocating most of the population of Florida. I don't believe that's going to happen. But I'm not saying and discounting that we have an effect. If there's flooding, there's flooding, and we have to adjust to it, and we've done that in the legislature, I'm proud to say.
We're talking to Paul Renner. He is one of the GOP candidates for governor in 2026, and you are welcome to join our conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937. We have a call from Tom on the west side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Good morning to you all, too. My question is this. What sets him apart from the other candidates, and if he's elected, will he maintain the status quo, or is he going to have his own direction?
Tom, thanks. I mean, we should say you've got some stiff competition in Byron Donalds. He has declared for governor. He has been endorsed by the president, Donald Trump. There's this potential other candidate in Casey DeSantis, who is not currently running, but her name has certainly been bandied about. And I want to say, there was some local polling that we did here. We had the head of the UNF poll, Public Opinion Research Lab, on Tuesday morning talking about the poll that they did. He did not include you in that poll. And when we asked him why, this is what he had to say. Let's take a listen.
Former Speaker of the House has raised a fair chunk of money.
But you didn't include him in this poll.
We didn't include him in this poll, and one was because it's not a Republican primary. So we're doing head-to-heads in the midterm elections. We can't include all of them because it's just too much. So we went with the two folks most likely to be at the top of the polls for the Republican primary, who were Casey DeSantis and Byron Donalds.
So I don't want to lose track of Tom's question, but I mean, it can't feel great not to be included in that poll because he doesn't think that you're polling high enough to be included in it.
Well, that's their call. Look, I mean, there was another poll that showed me beating the Democrat nominee, Congressman Donalds beating the Democrat nominee. I think most polls you're going to take are going to show generic Republican over generic Democrat. And so I know where I am, and I know that we're building momentum each and every day. And to Tom's question, Tom, the difference really that's not a close call is on leadership. This is a big leadership position. You want somebody that's got leadership experience and also has proven that they can deliver positive results. And so my background is one of service to the country, 20 years in the military, served in 2 wars. Here in Jacksonville, Operation Desert Storm, I was on the USS McInerney out at Mayport. 20 years later, I led a team that was fighting against foreign fighters coming into Afghanistan to kill Americans, to disrupt those networks. And I learned about the important veteran values, one of which is you don't quit on the mission and you make sure that you focus on the mission, not the ego, the pettiness, the politics. And I believe that's why I had 2 of the most successful and consequential 2 years as Speaker of the House legislatively. And I mentioned some of the things we did. We did a lot of great conservative reforms, too. If you're a conservative and you love the free state of Florida, you'll love Governor Renner. And to Tom's question, there will be differences. There's still more to do. We have to continue to look at affordability. Insurance is too high. Property taxes are too high. I want to get after that. Higher education reform is something, in K-12 reform, we need to continue to do. We have 40% of our students who don't read on grade level in the 3rd grade. That is morally unacceptable. And I mentioned infrastructure as another area. I would also say I was recently endorsed by Stand for Health Freedom for MAHA agenda. I want to see kids not being bombarded by ultra-processed foods. I want to make sure we live long and healthy lives. And I think that means we get more towards the whole foods. The closer we get to what's coming off the farm that goes to our plate, the better. A good night's sleep is important. Making sure that we're not defaulting to a drug response to everything we do. There's a lot of healthy options and healthy providers out there that can give us some alternatives. And I want to explore that. I want to make sure we're doing things that that look at a healthy lifestyle.
What about vaccines? I mean, that's obviously been a big issue here in Florida. Our own Surgeon General saying he wants to remove vaccine mandates for children. I know that you have said, you kind of support vaccines in certain cases like polio and measles, and perhaps not as much so on, I guess, what you consider somewhat lesser concerns, things like rotavirus. My question about vaccines really is, the idea behind vaccines is creating a shield for the community, sort of doing it of yourself, not just to protect yourself, your child, but to make sure that it doesn't spread and kill people who are vulnerable, who are infants who are too young to get vaccinated, who are people who are going through chemotherapy.
Yeah. So look, the question is whether it's the CDC and your pediatrician making the decision or you and your pediatrician making the decision for your kids. And many countries in Europe don't have mandates. And that's the question, is whether we have to have a mandate. To me, a mandate's like saying, you don't have you don't have a choice, basically, is what it's saying. And
well,
I think
there are exemptions people take advantage of.
There are, but those exemptions have some limitations. And so I think it's this: give people full information, the cost and the benefits. And as I've said publicly, if it's something, in my own children's case, if it's something that's going to kill them, and I see the benefit of vaccines, and I do believe they've had benefit, my kids are going to get that vaccine.
What if it's going to kill somebody else, though? I mean,
well,
what if it's...
Hold on. If it's a COVID vaccine, people were out, the CDC's out promoting, mandatory vaccines for 2-year-olds. That's outrageous because it didn't affect 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in the way it did elderly people,
but
people with comorbidities.
They're conduits to spread disease, so they may not get it, but they could spread it to your elderly relative.
I'm not on board with everything the CDC comes out with, that we have a mandate to inject my kid with that vaccine. The other thing that needs to be said, Ann, is when I was younger, I'm older than you, I'm sure, but when I was younger, you had 10 vaccines, the ones that kill you, right? And now there's 50, 60, 70 that keep being put on this mandatory list. And so kids are getting more vaccines earlier in time. That alone has some question marks about whether that can cause a higher incidence of vaccine injuries. Vaccine injuries are not hypothetical, they're real. And so this is a conversation I want to have. Now, I think when you sit down with your pediatrician and you weigh the costs and benefits, many parents, if not most parents, are going to opt to have a vaccine. But if it's rotavirus, for example, where your child's going to recover, maybe I'm not going to have that vaccine because it's not something that's going to kill my kid. They're going to, like my kids have been sick this week. They've had a fever. They're going to build immunity. They're going to go back to school better and stronger than ever. That's part of growing up, and that's part of us building our own immunity. And I just don't think that this plethora of vaccines, some of which are not for things that will put you in the hospital, need to be mandated for parents.
Want to take some calls here. Sally in Springfield. Sally, go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning. This is a new thing that I've just been hearing about and wondering about, but what are your thoughts or opinion on those new large data centers that are getting built in different states? My understanding is that they raise the electricity bill for the people around them. They use a lot of water. It's basically for AI, I believe. And Florida, from what I read, is considering putting a data center in our state somewhere. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I'll put aside the question of whether AI is good or not. That's a big, longer debate. But the question of data centers, you're right in that they generate a ton of demand on energy, which in turn can lead to subsidy by we the people, by the ratepayers. And I don't want to see that happen. And it has happened in other states. And so the problem here is capacity, our energy capacity. I support the president's efforts to look at a all of the above type of energy, whether it's fossil fuels or solar or natural gas, nuclear, you name it, whatever it is, to make sure that we have a robust energy sector that has sufficient capacity. And if we had sufficient capacity, hypothetically, I don't have an objection to it. But right now, I don't want to see data centers come in and jack up the rates of Floridians. And so that's where I come down on it. I think we need to build our capacity first before we have anything that's going to take up that much energy here in Florida.
Got a call from Brad in Jacksonville Beach. Good morning, Brad. Go ahead, please.
Candidate Renner, I believe during your time in Florida's public office, there was a bill that passed that limited local control of short-term rentals. As I remember during the time, I even think your area, Palm Coast, was kept out of that or exempt from it. Can you better explain why something that I don't think is good for Jack's Beach and you didn't think was good for Palm Coast was passed, and why we took that local authority away?
Well, I think the bill you're talking about actually gave more local authority. And so the question there is with people that had a grandfather right. And so we wanted to grandfather cities or counties that had already addressed this issue. But the bill itself would have actually given a little bit more local control. It was a priority of the Senate president. I don't come down on the middle of a lot of things. I'm usually pretty black and white on where I stand on things. On this one, I think there's two principles. One is private property and doing whatever you want with your private property to rent out your home. But on the other side is keeping communities cohesive, keeping them, not destroying a community that many people retire and they, in the case of Palm Coast, move into a community that is all of their life savings to spend their retirement years. And then next thing you know, there's a frat party next door. And there was a lot of really horrible stories. And this was during the crash, and I think people were desperate to pay their mortgages. But I think there needs to be some reasonable regulation. And so I kind of come down on the middle of this, that in this county, in this case, in Flagler County, has a pretty good ordinance that regulates that already. And so the idea was for those that did not have that to give them some additional control over what they could do with respect to regulating their vacation rentals.
We've got a call from Alfred in Jacksonville. Good morning. Go ahead, Alfred. Alfred, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I was asking about the charter schools that are coming into the state and taking over some of the public schools, supposedly unused state, and it's taking away money from the public schools. What's his thoughts on that?
Well, thank you for the question. Charter schools actually are public schools, and so they receive taxpayer money. The difference is really in the lack of union control. There's no collective bargaining with a charter school, so they can hire and fire teachers based on their performance. as one big difference. And if you look at the other difference, and I would recommend Thomas Sowell, the economist, who talks about a building in New York City where you have both a traditional public school and a charter school, and the performance on every outcome measure that you'd care about is better in the charter schools, I think, because they have that flexibility. I know that because they have that flexibility. And so I'm a proponent of charter schools. We've seen their growth because this is the way it should be. Every business has an entrance and an exit, but in the monopoly of education, historically, your kid can go in, but they can't leave. It's like the Hotel California. And so if public schools are doing a great job, more people will want to enter and fewer people will want to exit. But everybody ought to have a right to exit. And that's true for private schools, charter schools. If your child is not getting what they need, you ought to have the right to send your kid to a school that best suits their needs. Many times that's a charter school, which again is a public school. And we have many great ones here in Jacksonville.
One of the issues regarding charter schools here lately has been concern about this co-location that has allowed this expansion of schools for hope. And, here in Duval County, there is one single operator out of South Florida that's looking to either take over or come into more than 24 of the traditional public schools in Duval County. There's a fair amount of concern from some people that that's going to further deplete the local school districts' financial resources, that they're going to be, kind of losing that money to charter schools, that per pupil funding, but be required on some level perhaps to provide and share in the facilities that they, operate, whether it's busing or cafeteria or janitorial skills, that they're going to be paying for this and losing money at the same time.
Well, let me speak broadly. I'm a public school kid. I graduated from Terry Parker High School here. My mom was a public school teacher, so I am not against our public schools. I want every kid at every school to have a world-class education, period. However, we don't, and in the case of a restaurant that has a long waiting list, we would assume that's a pretty good restaurant. And if it's empty, we don't come in and say, let's subsidize the restaurant that can't, bring people in the door because it's just not performing well. The same thing with our schools, and our kids are so much more important. Again, every business has an entrance, but also an exit. And so if schools are performing well, and we have many public schools that are performing well, kids want to be there. Parents want their kids to be there. If they're not, we shouldn't force them to stay there because we call them public schools. We should have public education where the money follows the student. And if they want to go to a traditional public school, that's great. If they want to go to a charter school, which is a public school or a private school or a homeschool, that's great. And the great thing about the Universal School Choice Scholarship that I was a champion for is it allows for innovation. A homeschool kid could go to a traditional public school one day a week in a physics class because of the equipment that they have. And so there's an opportunity for our public schools to fill some of that capacity with kids that have never been in public schools for a day or two, if that's what the parent wants to do and if that makes sense for both sides. And so this is a question about excellence. This is a question about allowing money to flow where excellence flows. And if we're doing things right and leading to better outcomes, we should get behind that. And we should not get behind systems that fail us and that allow for almost 40% of our students in third grade to not read on grade level. And as governor, I will get after that problem. And that's not a shot at our public schools. I want to see what we need to do to make that happen. It's a long process, but we've got to demand excellence from every school.
We've got we've got a message from Jason in Avondale. He says, during his time in the House, Paul was a champion for medical billing transparency. However, he's been highly critical of the Affordable Care Act and the Democrats' line in the sand regarding the government shutdown. He has consistently said that the Affordable Care Act should be abolished and that those decisions should be put back in the states. Since he's running for governor, I'm interested to know what his plan is for lowering premiums and offering affordable health care insurance, especially for small business owners like myself. I currently do not have health insurance because I cannot afford it.
So let's talk about the Affordable Care Act, which is poorly named. And if you remember, we were told prices are going to go down, costs are going to go down, you'll keep your doctor. None of those things happen. And so you can ask your friend ChatGPT about it, but healthcare costs, whether it's premiums, deductibles, have gone up more than inflation, have gone up more than our wages. And this is the same issue we have with property taxes. It has outstripped people's ability to afford it. It's become the Unaffordable Care Act. And why, in part, is it requires a bunch of things that most of us don't need. And there's arguments that are made on the left-hand side of the political spectrum as to why that should be. But I'll give you an example that's simple. I had to buy my wife and I had to buy a oven unit, and it comes with some things that we wouldn't necessarily want. We have these extra features that we may never use, but we have to pay for them. Obamacare does the same with its regulations. For example, I'm paying for maternity care. Probably don't need that. And so you can argue whether that's good or bad, but what it's done is it's made everyone's policies more expensive over time. And as I said, it has not brought down costs, it's increased them. So I want to see state-centric care. I would like to see the Medicaid program, which is a federal state match, brought to the state level. We're doing a good job through Medicaid managed care where people, we are holding down the line on cost, but also have happier customers on the other side of that program. He mentioned transparency. I do believe in full transparency for price. You can go get an MRI, same MRI machine here in Jacksonville, and the price may vary widely based on where you park your car because there's just not transparency in that price. And so I had a bill that he's probably referring to that says, let's let the patient share in that savings. If they can go to the same MRI machine, it's nothing about quality, it's the same machine, that one place charges X and the other place charges X plus 20%, you save that 20%, you ought to put some of that in your pocket or allow you to deduct that off of your premiums or your deductibles in a fashion where you get some of the savings. We have a system where patients pay what they're told, they go where they're told, they have no incentive whatsoever to shop their care in a non-emergency setting. Obviously, you can't do that in an ambulance, but where it's something that you can schedule like a hip surgery, again, wide variety in the cost of a hip surgery in the state of Florida. If we empower patients through transparency, through shared savings, it's one way we can bring down the cost of care. And again, bringing it to the state level, we can be more responsive, drive down costs while still maintaining good access and good quality.
We've got a call from Crystal in St. Augustine. Crystal, go ahead, please.
Yes, with the recent increase in funds that charter schools and private schools are getting from the state, what is your plan for holding them accountable for providing the services for ESE students and students with disabilities that they are guaranteed to receive in public schools?
So everybody that receives the scholarship has to take an end-of-year exam so we know whether they're progressing as a public school kid would. But with respect to special needs, you mentioned ESE, but I'll tell you that it's been a game changer for children with autism. There's a school that is built as a result of the scholarship that gives parents who could not otherwise afford it a school that is specifically designed for children with autism. You can have the same thing with a micro school for children that have dyslexia or some other disability, and this is really, really important. Our public schools do the best job they can, but they're not built for, you can't have a one-size-fits-all for some students. And so I want to make sure that we have an educational system that is innovative, that meets the need of each child as an individual. We know even brothers and sisters learn differently. And so what school choice will do, as I mentioned earlier, is it will allow a flow not just out of traditional public schools, but also in traditional public schools if they're meeting the need. The bottom line is if you meet the needs of parents and students, money should flow to you. If you're not meeting that need, it should flow away from you. Again, an entrance and an exit into a business. If I don't like what I see at Chevy, I can go across the street to Ford. And that's how education ought to work as well, so that wherever we find innovators, and you can find them in a public school, and teachers that are innovators that are really delivering on education in whatever capacity that is, students will flow that way. And we want to make sure we empower that.
Well, Paul Renner, a good conversation. We hope to have you back during the course of the campaign. Once again, Paul Renner running for governor in 2026. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Ann. It's great to be with you.
All right, we'll be back in just a minute. We're talking to a local animator who tells the story of survival in 6 minutes. We ask her about the inspiration behind her 3D cartoon Catastrophe. Welcome back. My next guest is a Jacksonville native who made a big splash at one of the largest animated film festivals in the region last month. Joining us via video to tell us about it is Savannah College of Art and Design graduate student Emma Richmond. Good morning, Emma.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. So you are a 3D animator and filmmaker. You're from Jacksonville, but we're talking to you now in Savannah. You go to SCAD. And your short film called Inkwashed debuted at this AnimationFest in September. Tell us a little bit about what this is and how you were selected and congrats on being selected for the student showcase portion of it.
So Inkwashed is a SCAD Animation Studios film. It's an in-school studios by SCAD, and it's through an application process to be part of it. And Inkwashed is a film conceived to a response of a question: what would the world inside of a drawing look like? So we just wanted to create this 2D world through the lens of 3D animation. And yeah.
And so SCAD is kind of lucky and unique in the facility that it has there for animators like yourself. Can you describe a little bit what's available and how students make use of the opportunities there?
Absolutely. So we currently actually have SCAD Film Fest going on right now, and through these multiple festivals that we have at SCAD, students are allowed to engage with industry professionals, and we're able to ask them questions, what their experience is like, and we're also able to network with many of these folks as well. And we also sometimes have studios come in our classes, they'll critique our work, and they'll come and look at like the students' work and just let us know how we're doing, and they'll have presentations as well. Along with that, we actually have a lot of clubs where these studios visit too, to provide their experience and what they're looking for to hire. And there's a lot more, but those are the main ones.
You also have the animation studios there at the school, which I think is maybe the only kind of setup like that at a university. Is that right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so you were able to create this project, and we should say the film that you made is 6 minutes, but I'm guessing that took many, many, many hours to create. Can you tell us a little bit about the process?
Yeah, absolutely. So it took over 3 quarters, which is the course through September to May, to create the film. And we had over 120 students across both the Savannah and Atlanta campus to create this film. And we began with story, and we actually worked on the story all the way till the end. And we began with animating in 3D to actually visualize the story before actually diving into any of the bigger processes. But the whole artistic process happened from beginning to end. We kind of jumped between all of the different avenues while creating the film. Yeah.
And I want to ask you in a minute about the storyline and, what the characters represent. But what is 3D animation for people who don't understand that? I mean, we're looking at images on the screen, and to our eye, they sort of look like a 2D rendering.
Absolutely. So 3D animation is, if you look at the most recent, like Disney and Pixar films, characters that are in a 3-dimensional space rather than drawn on paper. These are created computer generated through programs such as Autodesk Maya, which is the main one. And we create everything on the computer.
Gotcha. And so Inkwashed is a story of kind of a parable, maybe, of catastrophe. Tell us about the plot and the characters in the film.
Yeah. So this film is when a catastrophe strikes, paradoodle creations must choose between competition and teamwork to save each other. So this is a slapstick drama in a drawn-out world, and these 2 rival doodles have to outrun an ink typhoon threatening to blot out everything they know. And so survival is chaotic at best, and one is mischievous, the orange one. And then we have carefree Scribble, who treats disaster like a game, while the other is grounded and meticulous in navigating this sinking terrain, which is the blue one. So along their adventure, they meet these ink dwellers, which are the little black guys of their sketched world, and get caught up in their lively festivities. And they're forced to work together to save themselves. And the natives, they come to realize they have sketched an unexpected friendship.
And so it's an adventure story. I think one of your supervisors compared it to a 1970s era disaster film. Where are you drawing your inspiration from?
Personally, I'm drawing it from, I guess, the same sort of idea. We began sort of looking in this European, but also Western type of vibe for the story. And I think the inspiration for this really just came from all of the students' ideas kind of meshing together, really, because it's such a unique story and it's not something that's out there in the world. We wanted something that was different, weird. What word we kind of like to use was wonky.
Mm.
Yeah.
And is there, I mean, should we be taking from this kind of lessons or warnings about climate concerns? It seems to have a lot of similarities in terms of the challenges that they're facing and sort of the catastrophic potential impacts.
I would say we definitely wanted to make the story sort of broad in its idea so the audience can take out what they feel like they can. But the story mainly was to just have a lot of fun and have that action, but also definitely I can see the climate change, and we've had many comments about that. We're like, yeah, we can see that. So yeah.
And so what has the reaction been since you screened this?
It was really surprising, actually, because we worked on this film all the way to the end till we had to submit this film. And we were a little bit scared what the reaction was from everyone, if everyone was going to actually understand the funny moments and all of the points that we wanted to get reactions from. So the first screening, everyone was laughing at those funny points. Everyone was getting the jokes. And all the funny moments that we personally thought as inside jokes was really getting sold. So it was really surprising to see how the audience really loved this film.
That must be very gratifying, I'm sure. Where does your love of animation come from? When did you sort of embrace it or start to work on your own drawings as a young person?
Absolutely. My love for art as a whole definitely came from when I was very young. I grew up on the old Disney classics along with Don Bluth classics. I would say my favorite film back in the day was Secret of Nim. I watched that a lot along with a lot of other Don Bluth films, but 3D animation specifically came to me when I actually first watched Tangled, and I was like, I want to do that. I really want to animate like that. And since then, I dived more into 3D animation, what it was, how it worked, and came to SCAD for that.
And so, you know, this is a time of a lot of change in the world of graphics, design, certainly animation, particularly when you're talking about, you know, computer renderings that are assisted or, you know, assist in the creation of some things. What is the vibe right now at SCAD among your peers when it comes to things like artificial intelligence and the impact that that's going to have on this field that you're all studying to become a part of?
Definitely. In our classes, we really do review what the industry is like right now, especially with AI and what it's doing in our industry. I would say right now it's not taking any of our jobs, but the core thing we definitely want to keep in mind is it's not going to leave, it's not going to go away, it's definitely staying here, and we just really need to take control of that. And if it does become part of our jobs, not necessarily like actually generating anything with it, we have to really take control of that. But we're not necessarily scared about it at all, as long as we keep to what we want to do with 3D animation. We can definitely make sure that everything will be all right.
So what is your plan I mean, you're a graduate student now. What is your plan? What's your desire? What do you want to do in the next few years?
Yeah. So I definitely want to work up in the ranks in the industry, I would say. I've had a lot of experience in my SCAD years, actually working in leadership positions on a lot of student productions, from producer to animation leads and supervisors. And I really want to get the experience from not an entry level, but definitely some of the lower levels, maybe underneath the supervisor, just getting their experience, the experience of an animator. So I know how to better lead my animators and who I will be leading in the future. I definitely want to be that best instructor and leader that I can to those around me, and definitely learn and soak up what I can from any other animators.
Well, we're going to have a link to the short that people can watch, trailer essentially of your film Inkwashed, at the First Coast Connect website. But Emma Richmond, congrats again. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
this
you.
morning.
Thank you so much. It was nice to speak about this film and myself this morning.
All right. Thanks, Emma. And we'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back. Well, the community nonprofit theater Five and Dime recently raised the curtain on its 2026 season and, as usual, has some edgy and interesting shows lined up. Here to give us a sneak peek is Denise Reagan. She's the executive director of the Five and Dime Theater Company. Denise, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Denise, you have been executive director of the theater for only a couple of months now.
Started August 1st.
Congrats.
Thank you.
And I know that that's an exciting new role for you. But we should say you actually come this morning with some exciting fundraising news for the theater, which is news to us.
I do. Yeah, this is news breaking here on First Coast Connect. We're happy to do that. The Five and Dime is very pleased to announce one of the largest gifts we've ever had since our founding in 2011. Retired journalist and politician Harry Reagan will donate $20,000 to the Five and Dime to support the theater's operations in 2026.
That's great news.
Yes.
Harry Reagan is a well-known figure for those of us who've been in journalism a long time. Obviously, he served under Sheriff Glover. He worked at Channel 4, was kind of their editorial director, did their commentaries, was
That's right.
very influential in their investigative work. He's also your dad.
That's right.
And so I'm guessing that the donation is in part a sign of his, faith in you and his hope that this endeavor of yours is a big success.
That's right. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm incredibly excited and love, goes out to my father who is listening right now. Hi, Dad. But he hopes this large gift will act as a catalyst to the community to help spur individuals to donate to our end of the year campaign, but essentially doubling any donations up to $20,000. So we really hope that kicks off our end of the year campaign. But his support is, really in support of what the Five and Dime does and the kinds of stories that we tell. And, particularly next year, we underline a lot of topics that we've covered over the years, racism, homophobia, women's rights, grief, learning disabilities, transgender rights. Many of these are issues that were near and dear to him over the years, both as an editorialist and working in city government.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit, for people who aren't familiar with Five and Dime, kind of how you choose your shows, how you present as, one of many theater companies in the community, how you set yourself apart.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that. The Five and Dime, we pride ourselves on, choosing plays that other organizations would not do. We have a very diverse and mostly younger audience, so we have a little bit of an ability to kind of play to our audience. We always choose material that is topical and relevant to what's happening today, which is very important to us. We want to speak to the moment. Everything we do has an elevated artistic or literary element to it, which gives it, an extra level of, excitement to the material. And then we really base everything we do in being able to present something with high quality production value and talent, both on and off stage.
So tell us a little bit about what the lineup is, and just briefly, because we only have really a minute, but you've got a number of very cool performances. Anyone in particular that you're especially excited about?
Well, the one that we announced actually a little bit earlier than our announcement last week is Alice by Heart, which is a musical, and we're doing that in partnership with the Swoop Troupe, which is the musical theater club of UNF. And we did a production with them earlier this year called Ride the Cyclone, and they did an amazing job. It was a great partnership, and so we're really happy to be back with them. We just did the casting for that about a week ago.
And that's by the same people that did Spring Awakening.
That's right. Well, no, they're not doing Spring Awakening. Spring Awakening is one of the shows that was
it's by the same people.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's what I mean.
So Alice by Heart is also written by the same people who did Spring Awakening. But it's a bold reimagining of Alice in Wonderland set during the London Blitz. And it's got this very energetic nostalgia and kind of a Beatles-esque feel to a lot of the music. And the auditions were amazing. We have some really talented people that are going to be showcased.
And you do have a current show underway right now, which is sort of a very fun one. It's not for kids, but it's sort of rooted in the Harry Potter tradition. So it takes a look at kids who are not they weren't part of the group in the Harry Potter. They were sort of these
That's
other
right.
kids that were imperiled by what was going on.
So we're not allowed to use that second name.
Okay.
But Harry is a character in this play, in this very funny, fast-paced play. That's a group of young wizards, and they're the awkward kind of kids, the underachievers of the wizarding world. And it's a very chaotic and very moving, play. And it's yes, there are badgers in it. So those of you who are familiar with the symbols of the different
And it's called
groups.
Puffs, or 7 Increasingly Eventful Years at a Certain School of Magic and Magic.
That's right.
All
And
right.
it's directed by Daniel Austin and Ron Shreve, who are two local fantastic actors and directors.
Well, Denise Reagan, thanks for being here. You can find a link to more of their season on our website. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Be back in just a minute with What's Up at the Fair.
The Jacksonville Fair celebrates 70 years in its downtown farewell before moving to the west side, November 6th through 16th, with concerts featuring Anytime at All, a Beatles tribute, Kenzie's Place, Moonstalker, and the Gospel Explosion. Full lineup at jacksonvillefair.com. The Jacksonville Symphony presents America in Concert, 250 Years of Music and Majesty, on November 16th. The orchestra, symphony chorus, and guest vocalists unite for a powerful evening of music and patriotism. Tickets available at jacksymphony.org.
I'm Robin Young. Pronatalists say the lower birth rate means women must have more babies, but a sociologist says there's something more going on.
It's really about sort of a social engineering project that is being supported by efforts to say, oh my God, birth rates are declining, we have to do something.
The pronatalist movement, next time, here and now.
Today at 1 on WJCT News 89.9.
For 20 years, Katie Herzog tried to stop drinking, but nothing worked.
It was booze noise, and the booze noise never, ever stopped. Always in the back of my mind was this question, when can I drink? Can I drink? Knowing I shouldn't drink. That was the defining feature of it.
Until at last, she found a way to stop the noise using a different path to sobriety. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
Americans head to the polls in a general election next week with high-stakes issues on the ballot. Thousands of cities will pick a mayor while multiple states weigh ballot measures that could change the way people vote, all amid a national push to redistrict from both sides of the aisle. The local election stories you need to watch next time on 1A.
Today starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. After 70 years downtown, it is now time for a fond farewell. It's the Jacksonville Fair's final run at the downtown fairgrounds. Here to tell us about this last year and what's coming up next is Lisa Thomas. She's Director of Marketing and Events for the Greater Jacksonville Agricultural Fair. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
So this is a little bittersweet.
It is. It definitely is. We're excited about celebrating 70 years with everyone, but we're also excited about moving to our new home.
Yeah. And this is, it is a big shift. I mean, the first fair was back in 1955. My producers pulled some great photos of kind of the heyday of it in its early years. It, has been a downtown institution, and we're so used to seeing the Ferris wheel on the night skyline spinning around. So first of all, what's on deck this year? Are there new things? Are there the things that we're all accustomed to seeing in terms of the midway and the funnel cakes and the fried Twinkies?
Yeah, so we kept it pretty traditional. We have, of course, all the rides. Everybody loves all the rides. I'd say that the giant wheel, which is the Ferris wheel, the Hydra, the slingshot one that like takes you way up and then drops you down. And then of course we have the fireball. We have over 50 rides, so lots
Wow.
for people to enjoy. That includes children's rides too. So
And roller coasters.
and roller coasters.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And so, I mean, what is your favorite part of the fair? When did you first go to the fair? Do you have like memories of it yourself going there as a younger person?
I do. When we first moved here from Chicago, we went to the fair. We'd been here for a while and we were kind of in culture shock. This is back in the 80s, by the way. And then we went to the fair and it was so massive. We were super impressed,
Yeah.
honestly. So, yeah, I've always had really good memories of the fair and the fair being downtown.
Am I right in seeing that there is going to be a new alligator wrestling exhibit at this point?
There
is
is
that part of it? Tell me.
scales, tails, and teeth. Yes.
Jeez Louise. Okay. I mean, that sounds like very, very only in Duval.
Yeah.
But there are other agricultural things. There's other animal exhibits. What else is there?
There are. So we have a lot of livestock shows and competitions as well. So that's really cool. We also have Robinson's Racing Pigs, which I feel like everyone comes to see that every year. We have them every year. They're legendary. So they'll be there this year, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, well, the pigs are a favorite, and I think
Yeah.
we're all glad to see pigs running. I think the fairs of old had them jumping, which is like a little less.
Very true.
Yeah. So this fair, it runs from the 6th of November. It kicks
Mhm.
off, and it runs for 11 days.
Yeah, it sure does. And we have a lot of really good deal days during those days that everybody needs to know about. We have you can go on our website, jacksfair.com, and check all those deal days out.
We're seeing some video too on for people who are watching our live stream. We just saw a seal.
Oh, we have the Sea Lion
Sea
Splash,
lion,
which is
okay.
a huge hit. It's really entertaining. The people that run it are wonderful as well. So, yeah, I recommend everybody sees the Sea Lion Splash.
I didn't want to cut you off though. One of these things, in terms of discounts, there's something called a mega pass, which people buy, which can kind of get you in for one flat fee, and then you get on all the rides.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have the Mega Pass, which is very inexpensive right now, and it ends on November 5th. So after November 5th, it shoots up like to $40. And what it does is it gets, right now it's 25. So it gets you in the gate, and then it gets you all the rides and everything else at the fair. So
You still have to pay for food.
you
Funnel
do
cakes are
still have to
extra.
pay for food. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, but there are also discounts for the military,
Yes.
seniors, students.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a Duval County Public School Day Monday, November 10th, which should be really fun.
Okay. And then, I mean, you are moving. So what are you looking for? This is going to be on the west side now.
It is. Yes, it's going to be on the west side, and I'm looking forward to the whole thing. It's 82 acres.
It's sort of near Cecil Field.
It's part of that whole complex. So we're right next to the Equestrian Center.
Okay.
So they're our neighbor. We're right there. So super easy to find. And we do have a lot of people ask us that. So that's the easiest way to find us. And
so it'll be a bigger footprint.
Huge. So we have 82 acres to start with 60 acres for future development. Right now we are almost finished building our 40,000 square foot indoor concert venue and expo hall. And we're also building a 10,000 capacity amphitheater.
And I would guess that may make the bands and the shows there maybe even bigger. I mean, in terms of
Yes.
the acts that come and perform there.
Yes, 100%. So during the fair, we're going to have national acts each day of the fair. So, and those will be in the amphitheater. And then we'll also still have our local and regional stages as well.
Well, it's always a good time, and it is the last year for the downtown fair, so it's worth checking out. Lisa Thomas, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you for listening. That's our program. If you have comments or suggestions, you can send either to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. And if you missed anything, catch our rebroadcast when we air this program again at 8 o'clock tonight. You can also find our entire archive on the First Coast Connect YouTube channel and at wjct.org or on your favorite podcast platform. First Coast Connect is produced by Stacey Bennett. Our associate producer is Isabella Casapow. Our show is directed by Brady Coram, and our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Join us tomorrow when we recap the week's top stories, from the sale of Marineland's Dolphin Adventure to a permanently shuttered school for autistic students due to the government shutdown. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
Discover new and classic music every Saturday night starting at 8 with Mr. Al Pete as we stroll through the neighborhood. And then stay tuned for Bop City, Electro Lounge, and Blues Horizon, only on WJCT News 89.9 Saturday nights.